Hi everybody, welcome to my homestead and welcome to my channel. My name is Jared. If you haven't already, please make sure to subscribe. In my last video, we talked about the Mormon moment, which was back in like 2011 and 2012. And I was doing research for that video and I came across this from Daily Mail. It's from 2012. Mormon church confirms its members are allowed to drink Coke and Pepsi, but tea is still banned. So if you're not a member of our church, it's not called the Mormon Church. It's the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. President Nelson, the current president of the church, has really been stressing that. It's kind of like if you were talking about Judaism and instead of referring to them as Jews, you called them Moseses, or other Christian denominations, if you refer to them as like Matthews or Luke's or John's or Peter's or something like that. So it's the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And in this video, well, we're going to talk about the church's stance on whatever, Coke, Pepsi, other caffeinated sodas. We're going to talk about caffeine because I have a spreadsheet called Quotes A through Z right here at the bottom. The link for my spreadsheets is in the description box of each video. And this one, just like it sounds, I'm trying to collect quotes from church leaders, and I'm trying to collect scriptures that have to do with all these topics. It's just, this is turning into like a lifelong project. So feel free to come here, access this, copy anything that you need to. Okay, so let's start with this. Well, it's now 100% official. Mormons are allowed to drink Coke, and more specifically caffeine, just not tea or coffee. In a statement issued this week, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints cleared up what had become a contentious and misrepresented fact. Posted online, the Salt Lake City, Utah-based church said that the church does not prohibit the use of caffeine, quote unquote, in that the faith's health code reference to hot drinks does not go beyond tea or coffee. Okay, I think that's all that I have for this article. So it's referring to this newsroom blog. I don't think that this exists anymore, but this is like the church's on the church website, the newsroom. And this is a post from August 29th, 2012. Mormonism in the news, getting it right. Like I said, this is something that President Nelson has corrected. We no longer use this name in describing ourselves. Okay. The media attention directed toward the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints took a unique turn last Thursday as NBC's Rock Center with Brian Williams became the first network program to devote a full hour of primetime television to a report on Mormonism. Although NBC doesn't get everything right in this program, titled Mormon in America, it was a sincere attempt to know the faith. Thursday's show is a good example of what we mean when we say we want to be part of the global discussion of Mormonism. And then it goes through and talks about a bunch of stuff. And the blog post corrects some things. And then you just have this little paragraph right here that everybody's freaking out about. Finally, another small correction. Despite what was reported, the church revelation spelling out health practices in Doctrine and Covenants 89, which is a book of our scripture, if you're not a member of our church, does not mention the use of caffeine. The church's health guidelines prohibit alcohol drinks, smoking, or chewing of tobacco, and quote-unquote hot drinks, taught by church leaders to refer specifically to tea and coffee. Okay, so it's just this. It wasn't like a big announcement, but of course people latched onto this, and it's not like this was like really a defining moment, as I'm about to show you, but you know, I've added it to my spreadsheet. Now, excuse me, the Salt Lake Tribune also did an article about this. Let me read a little bit from here. Okay, Mormons, drink up. Coke and Pepsi are okay. On Wednesday, the LDS Church posted a statement on its website saying, the church does not prohibit the use of caffeine, in that the faith's health code reference to hot drinks does not go beyond tea and coffee. A day later, The website wording was slightly softened, saying only that, quote, the church revelation spelling out health practices does not mention the use of caffeine, end quote. And I would say that that's more accurate. Well, don't worry, we're getting to why. Okay, later on, the view was magnified when LDS Church President Gordon B. Hinckley offhandedly told 60 Minutes that Mormons avoid caffeine. Which, I mean, yeah, it's pretty offhandedly. It comes from this interview with Mike Wallace. I think this is the only like full version of it on YouTube. So I'll put a link for this in the description box below. But I took down the quote and referenced this video. And this is what was said. Mike Wallace: no alcohol, no tobacco, no coffee, no tea, not even caffeinated soft drinks. President Hinckley: right. Mike Wallace: eat meat sparingly, exercise. President Hinckley: right. It's wonderful. So it wasn't like a central topic. They were just talking about the word of wisdom in general. But President Nelson, oh my gosh. Okay, it is now 2025, Jared. President Hinckley said right when he asked not even caffeinated soft drinks. Now, just hold on. We're getting to it. Okay, so we have that. Back to the Salt Lake Tribune article. Several earlier LDS leaders, including Apostle Bruce R. McConkie, considered imbibing coke as a violation of the quote-unquote spirit of the word of wisdom. I tried to find that quote. This might be it. I'm not sure. We're on fairlatterdaysaints.org. They are a great organization, foundation. They've collected so much information themselves. I'm basically kind of doing a lot of the same thing that they're doing. But, they're like, it's just like something that a lot of creators do. You have like Joseph Smith Foundation. They've collected a lot of information and it's just really good. So they have this quote from Elder Bruce R. McConkie. Some unstable people become cranks. There is no prohibition in Section 89 as to the eating of white sugar, cocoa, chocolate, or anything else except items classified under tea, coffee, tobacco, and liquor. If some particular food disagrees with an individual, then that person should act accordingly without reference to the prohibitions in this particular law of health. So I think this is what the Salt Lake Tribune article is referring to. But if it's not, I think it's in the same vein that if there's something that's bad for you, if it's not good for you, if you're having a problem with it, you see that it's affecting your health, even though it's not spelled out in the word of wisdom, then you should probably stop doing that thing and take care of your health. So it's as simple as that. Go back here. Okay. Later on it says, part of the confusion stems from LDS Church-owned Brigham Young University, which neither sells nor serves caffeinated drinks. So this is back in 2012. I'm sure that's changed by now. Let me know in the comments if you know. But BYU spokeswoman, Carrie Jenkins explains that, quote, not a university or church decision, but made by dining services based on what our customers want, end quote. There has not been, quote unquote, been a demand for it. We are constantly evaluating what those needs and desires are, end quote. Indeed, fully caffeinated colas are available in the church's Joseph Smith Memorial Building, restaurants, and in the Lionhouse Pantry next to the Face headquarters in downtown Salt Lake City. Yeah, these are all on, you have like Temple Square proper, and then the adjacent city block, which has all these things like the church office building. So it's all like right there. Okay. So we got that. And I didn't know that was the case back in 2011. I never really cared about it too much. I've always drunk like Coke and Mountain Dew and stuff. I've been a lifelong member of the church, and I was never taught by anybody that like that was strictly the case. Like we're not supposed to drink caffeine. Although I was aware like that idea was going around, but it was never like officially taught to me. So my own opinion here is that I think like you have well-meaning members of the church that want to live as righteously as possible. They want to take care of their bodies, and they realize that caffeine is generally not good. And we're going to talk about that as well. Later on, there's an Ensign article called "The Energy Drink Epidemic." And a fair amount of this article actually talks about caffeine. So we'll talk about that. Caffeine is, it is generally not good for you. It is generally not good for you. So I think a lot of people back then, it just got probably repeated so many times that people started to assume that it was against the word of wisdom, like flat out, like, no, you are sinning if you drink, Coke or Mountain Dew. Okay. So from here, let's go ahead and look at some of these other quotes that I have pulled up. Okay, this is Elder Sterling W. Sill, assistant to the Council of the 12 Apostles. That's a position that doesn't exist anymore. The April 1965 General Conference, the name of the talk is The Death Instinct. And he says, no one ever gets off the straight and narrow way at right angles, and no sin is born fully grown. Every sin is a minor one to begin with. Percentage-wise, very few people will ever lose their blessings because they become murderers Percentage-wise, very few people will ever lose their blessings because they become murderers or sons of perdition. Yeah, very few people go to those extremes. As someone has pointed out, it isn't the giant redwoods that trip us up as we walk through the forest. It's the vines and the underbrush. And one of the most damaging sins, and one that gives greatest strength to our death instinct, is the violation of that great revelation given 132 years ago called the word of wisdom. Some violators of this law tend to excuse themselves because it appears to be such a small thing. It seems like just a little disobedience, a little caffeine. So there you go, caffeine, a little nicotine, a little friendly indulgence in alcohol. Yet these are the springboards to disease, broken homes, immorality, disloyalty to God, physical death, and the death of many of our eternal interests. Oh yeah, by the way, this is the scripture citation index. I searched for the word caffeine. You can search General Conference talks going back to 1942, and it only comes up 4 times. And no one talks about it like directly. It's just kind of like in passing, like what we just read. So yeah, he mentions a little caffeine, not surprising. I mean, not that that's going to, I don't know that that's going to lead to broken homes. I mean, he also mentioned alcohol and stuff like that, but it could lead to other things, and physically it can lead to other things. We'll get to that in a little bit. This is Elder Richard L. Evans of the Council of the 12 Apostles, October 1969 General Conference. The name of the talk is This You Can Count On. And you know what? I'm feeling it. I'm not going to like read this. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but you can see that he says, in greater or less degree, all nerve affecting drugs produce it. Nicotine, caffeine, opium, cocaine, and all the rest, strong or weak. Habitual use of any of these is a physical vice. Yeah, now that's true. I'm sure that there are plenty of people in my audience right now, including myself, that are addicted to caffeine. And I'm actually trying to kick that. I'm actually working on that right now. There have been times where I've successfully gotten off of it and just, drank water and, non-caffeinated drinks. I'm going to get back to that point again. Not because you are restricted from doing it. And even if I do kick it, I'm probably going to drink it again when I go out to restaurants or on special occasions. But anyway, we have this one. This is Bishop Keith B. McMullin, second counselor in the presiding bishopric. Welcome Home is the name of the talk. April 1999 General Conference. And He says, let's see, this is a quote. This led to a reading. Okay. Oh yeah, that's right. So he's telling the story of a person. He didn't use his real name, Thomas, who basically like cleaned up his life. And in telling the story, he says he stopped using drugs and caffeine, and then so on. And later on, he went on to receive the Melchizedek priesthood, which of course, he still could have received even if he was consuming caffeine through like caffeinated drinks. But, you know, the bishop is just showing that these were positive changes. Not doing drugs, not doing caffeine. Those are good things. And then President Hinckley, in the April 2002 General Conference, so this was just a couple months after the 2002 Winter Olympics in Salt Lake City, he gives this talk, The Church Goes Forward, and he talks about the Olympics in here. And there's this part. Georgie Ann Geyer, or Geyer, I don't know, prominent syndicate writer whose column appears in many newspapers, wrote as follows, quote, "How on earth could a largely Mormon state do something so daring as hosting an international celebrity meeting? Would the world come gladly to a state whose dominant religion asks members to abstain from alcohol, tobacco, and even caffeine, three staples of international conferences?" So again, it's not the point of the talk, but President Hinckley doesn't correct that. The church abstaining from alcohol, tobacco, and caffeine. So I think that President Hinckley was more on the side of like, really, like, don't do it. But he never said specifically, we can't drink caffeine. Okay. And then let's go back here. I was looking through, so like this Fair Latter-day Saint page right here is stuff having to do with the Word of Wisdom, all sorts of different things. You can see, the issues right here. And so I found a couple quotes that I've added to my spreadsheet. I want to read one more before we move on to this energy drink article. Okay, so this is from President Spencer W. Kimball, president of the church at that time. When this was said, this comes from his book called Teachings of Spencer W. Kimball. I went and looked it up, and it wasn't clear if he was an apostle when this was said or what, but we do know that he went on to become president of the church. But this is the book that you can find this in, page 202. Okay, wisdom goes beyond the letter of the law. That's really important. Not just in the word of wisdom, but just in general. Let me just say this. I see so many times people trying to justify themselves by use of technicalities, the letter of the law. And that's something that the scribes and Pharisees and doctors of the law, that's what they were all about at the time of Christ. They pretty much, it seemed like they mostly ignored the spirit of the law and always looked at technicalities. And usually that's because you're trying to justify or make okay something that you shouldn't be doing, right? So some people would look at this and be like, well, yeah, the word of wisdom, it doesn't talk about caffeine, so, and they'll just like die on that hill. But let's think about it this way, okay? Wisdom goes beyond the letter of the law. Generally, when we speak of the word of wisdom, we are talking about tea, coffee, tobacco, and liquor. And all of the fringe things, even though they might be detrimental, are not included in the technical interpretation of the word of wisdom. I never drink any of the cola drinks, and my personal hope would be that no one would. However, they're not included in the word of wisdom in its technical application. I quote from a letter from the secretary to the first presidency. Quote, "But the spirit of the word of wisdom would be violated by the drinking or eating of anything that contained a habit-forming drug." End quote. With reference to the cola drinks, the church has never officially taken any attitude on this. And then I think this is a typo, but this is how it shows up in the book. but I personally do not put them in the class as with the tea and coffee because the Lord specifically mentioned them, the hot drinks. Okay. I feel like this pretty much, this quote does a really good job summing up what the church would teach, or basically what our attitude should be when it comes to caffeinated drinks. So no, it's not like you can't get a temple recommend if you're drinking Coke or Pepsi. I mean, maybe you shouldn't. If you're drinking Pepsi, you should drink Coke. I'm a Coke guy. But it's also not good if you're addicted to it, if it's habit forming, if it's like a vice. Vices are not good. So, okay. And now let's move on to, this is the December 2008 Ensign. The name of the article is The Energy Drink Epidemic by Thomas J. Baud, I don't know, MD. And like I said, most of this is about caffeine. I mean, obviously he talks about energy drinks, but he spends a fair amount of time talking about caffeine. So caffeine is bad. It is generally bad. Okay. He says, I have treated a number of caffeine-related medical conditions. Milder conditions include jitteriness, agitation, insomnia, difficulty concentrating, and rapid heart rate. Use of caffeine can lead to a decrease in cerebral blood flow. So it's like blood to your brain in adults, and could increase the chance of compromising long-term growth in infants. Caffeine can also precipitate other conditions. I should have highlighted that. Because that's a big thing. It can precipitate, it can lead to, it can start other conditions. Okay. Let me just do that now, just for emphasis. We'll put it in red. Caffeine can also precipitate other conditions that can lead to further problems. Here's an example. Using caffeine on a long-term basis to compensate for tiredness resulting from lifestyle choices results not only in sleep deprivation, but also in physiological stress. These in turn can lead to an increased level of certain hormones that can lower one's metabolism. A lower metabolism leads to an increased craving of carbohydrates and sugars, and often will result in weight gain. Which, I don't know if that's... Okay, let's just move on. Ironically, many people use these drinks in order to lose weight, whereas just the opposite may occur. So that's because the increased level of certain hormones lowering your metabolism, which may increase your craving for carbohydrates and sugars. Okay. So you're drinking a diet soda. It may actually cause this problem. Okay. Many physicians believe that this process has contributed significantly to the current problem of obesity in the United States. Weight gain has a negative influence on the medical conditions of sleep apnea, diabetes, depression, and even cardiac and, gosh dang it, cerebrovascular disease. As my experience with Mrs. Jones demonstrates, high caffeine intake can cause a number of other serious problems as well, such as elevated blood pressure, gastrointestinal disorders, and even osteoporosis. Other commonly known physiological effects of caffeine consumption include acid reflux, urinary incontinence, restless leg syndrome, tremors, irritable bowel syndrome, and atrial fibrillation. Research also indicates a close relationship between caffeine use and elevated cholesterol levels and potentially coronary heart disease. So it's no small thing. I mean, by itself, it may be kind of a small thing and it may seem benign, but it can lead to these like much more serious things. In addition to rage and agitation, Other mood disorders negatively affected by caffeine include ADHD, premenstrual dysphoric disorder, anxiety, and even depression. I've seen many patients whose depression has actually worsened after continued excessive caffeine intake. So not that it causes these things, but it can exacerbate them, essentially. That's all that I have here. He goes on, and there's, even more information. I'll put the link for this in the description box below. And then lastly, I would encourage you to watch this video. I don't know if you've seen this before, but this is like a parody of like a coffee commercial where it's the name of this channel is Honest Ads, and this guy just like rips apart caffeine and what it does to you. Specifically coffee, but he talks about caffeine. There's a part. He's like, there's nothing like a steaming cup full of an addictive drug in the morning. Later on, you see these small brown seeds are a naturally occurring source of the world's most widely consumed central nervous system stimulant, caffeine. While most brain-altering substances are outlawed or at least tightly controlled by the government, this entirely legal psychoactive drug is enjoyed by basically every person you know on a daily basis, completely unrestricted and with zero cultural stigma. I can't wait to add flavors and sweetener to distract from the from the natural flavor of this thing I claim to love and not be addicted to. I do like it. It's just the 2 sugars and the hazelnut creamer make... I'm not addicted. Junkies like him keep me a harvester of brown seeds in business, but not just me, also a distributor of overpriced addictive sludge. It also comes in pumpkin flavored if you'd prefer that to the wet cigar boiled asphalt flavor that occurs naturally. He delivers it better than I do. Okay, so that's it for this one. If you haven't already, please make sure to subscribe, like this video if you liked it, leave your thoughts and opinions down in the comments below. Also make sure to share it, and I'll talk to you guys later.